On today's episode, I'm going to be sharing why your marketing may not be working, and I'm going to give you 6 traps that most businesses fall into that leads them to waste a whole lot of time, money, and energy on really just bad marketing, so you can avoid that and get better results, more customers, more leads, more sales, all the things you want from your marketing. Let's get to it. Hey there, my name is Erhart, marketing strategist, and welcome to The Marketing Show, where we help you grow your business and generate more leads, customers, and sales by making way better marketing. So, if you're interested in learning the latest and greatest marketing strategies, tools, tips, tricks, and tactics, well, you may want to consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Alright, let's talk marketing, and specifically some of the worst mistakes that I see businesses make when it comes to marketing, which inevitably leads them to swearing off marketing altogether, thinking that it's just a scam of an industry, that nothing works, and then they give it up and just go back to doing things the way they've always done them. 9 times out of 10, the way that they've always done them is kind of a hodgepodge mixture of some random acts of marketing where they're just kind of doing whatever comes across their plate, or at the very least some sort of very basic strategy that's not really planned out and doesn't really align with their goals and their market and all the things that we're going to get to in just a second. Also, for most businesses, a great strategy they are using is referrals and word of mouth, but the problem here is they're not leveraging these appropriately, which means that it's essentially not much more than hope marketing. Basically hoping you get a referral, hoping that someone comes in the door, and really that puts you at a massive disadvantage when it comes to generating new customers and revenue on autopilot or on demand or whenever you need it, because really you're at the whim of other people to deliver those referrals to you. Alright, so that wasn't actually one of the mistakes that I had intended on talking about, but it is important, so make sure we file that away and we can talk about it in another episode on another day. But for now, let's get to the massive mistakes I see most businesses making. Biggest mistake number 1 is failing to identify an ideal target market. Now, we've all heard this before if you've been in business for any length of time, that you know you need to have that ideal customer avatar, that perfect person or perfect prospect or ideal client or customer that you're trying to attract with your marketing. I'm sure you've heard the expression that if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody, because what that inevitably leads to is really bland and boring and kind of vanilla type marketing messages. And this is just absolutely disastrous when it comes to creating marketing that actually impacts someone and sort of creates that emotional bond and gets them to take action. Because if you're just saying really bland and boring and generic terms, like pretty much all of the competitors in your space are doing as well, you don't stand out, you don't make that connection, and therefore your marketing just fails. This is why step number 1, and by far the biggest mistake, is that you really have to dial in and focus on kind of that ideal person that you're trying to reach with your marketing. Talking about their demographic details, like their age, their gender, their income, their occupation, their geographic details, like what city or state or province or country that they live in, and their psychographic details, like what are their attitudes, their interests, their beliefs, organizations or groups or affiliations, basically all the kind of mental stuff that you're going to be able to use to better connect with them and better create messaging that resonates and therefore gets them to trust you and your business. But if you don't know who you're talking to, you're not going to know what to say, which is why most marketing falls flat. Alright, let's move on to mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is that once you've got this ideal customer in mind, it's failing to reach them where they are. And essentially what this comes down to is little more than ignoring or completely disrespecting changing trends in consumer media consumption. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially all it really means is that by failing to really understand how your ideal target market likes to engage and interact with brands and businesses and content in general, if you fail to recognize where they are, you're going to end up on all these kind of dinosaur platforms. Places like the newspaper and the radio, or maybe using the phone book. All these mediums that used to be really effective 5, 10, 20 years ago, but really now are just outdated and are not going to deliver the best bang for your buck. Now, a more modern example would be simply finding where your customers are, accepting that they are online, but then failing to identify which platforms and which channels are going to be best and best in alignment with your brand, your business, and your customers as well. Talking about things like maybe misidentifying that they're on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or Twitter or Pinterest. All of these things, like really, if you sort of mislabel them or mislabel your customers and think that they're in the wrong bucket when really they're over here, you're going to miss the mark completely, and you're going to end up marketing in what I call the wasteland, essentially dumping a ton of time and money and energy into a platform where none of your ideal customers are. So it really makes sense to take a step back, identify that ideal customer, where they're active, so you can devote more of your time and resources there. Alright, so the next mistake is failing to make an extraordinary or irresistible offer. Way too many businesses and brands blame Facebook ads for not working, when in reality, the problem is that they're putting out an ad that has an offer that nobody really wants. You see, it's not that they don't want your business. It's not that they don't want your product or your service, and it's not that you don't do a good job. It's just that you failed to frame it in a way that actually makes it irresistible or attractive to the market in order to get them to take action. This is a massive mistake I see way too many businesses make, especially when we're trying to uncover their key points of differentiation or how they're better than their competitors in the space. All too often they use words like higher quality or better service or we deliver a better product, and the bad news here is that's pretty much what all of your competitors are saying. So if you're saying that too, well, it really just lumps you in with them and it doesn't differentiate you at all. Your customers have heard this before and nobody takes any action. This is why one of the keys to marketing, specifically when we're talking about advertising, you've got to have an irresistible offer. You have to have something that's in alignment with your target market that they deem absolutely worthy of clicking on or taking action on or basically coming into your store or engaging with you in some way, shape, or form. Alright, now one of the next biggest mistakes I see when it comes to marketing is failing to be consistent. Now we've all heard about consistency and how important it is that we've got to show up day in and day out, create consistent content and all of those things for all the different platforms. And this advice is true for sure, but the reason behind it has a little to do with essentially kind of training people to show up and expect your content, and more to do with the fact that we really just need to increase customer touch points, which means we've got to give the customer more opportunities to engage and interact and experience your brand and business. See, it's really rare that a customer is just going to come across your business and automatically want to do business with you, give you money. So what you've got to do is you've got to build that know, like, and trust factor. And the way we do that is by showing up in front of them again and again and again and again and again and again, and basically providing as much valuable, relevant, and informative content as you possibly can. Running one ad and then calling it quits, or writing one blog post and then never posting again, or logging into Twitter and making a tweet and then not showing up again for 3 years, well, that's inconsistent, and therefore it's not going to deliver results. It's not marketing's fault, it's the inconsistency. Now, of course, it's easier to be consistent on a platform that's actually in alignment with your values and your brand and your business and your customers. This is why it really all boils down again to identifying that ideal customer avatar, finding the platforms that they're sort of active on, and then going there with relevant and valuable information. Alright, so the next mistake is failing to fully appreciate the customer journey. And I see this all the time, especially with novice advertisers who go out there and create an ad and they just go straight for the kill. They make a really hard offer and a really hard pitch right off the bat to cold traffic, meaning someone that's never heard of you, doesn't know who you are, and therefore, well, the campaign kind of falls flat. The analogy I like to use here is it's kind of like proposing marriage on the very first date. Well, that old expression, it can't hurt to ask, well, in reality, yeah, it can hurt to ask, and especially if you ask way too soon and way too kind of forthcoming and really just go out there and say it out loud. A much better strategy is to slow things down, really take into consideration the customer journey and what kind of touch points they're going to need to have with your brand and with your business in order to build up that trust, in order to want to do business with you and really want to engage, because that's what this is about. Really, marketing is about getting people to want to come to us rather than always having to go out there and force our message down their throats. So my takeaway advice here is actually pretty simple. Make sure you still do have that hard offer, that direct offer that says buy now or give me money or do business with me, whatever that is. But also make sure you've got a soft offer or a transitional offer that allows somebody to sort of get introduced to you and your business and your world without having to hand over any money. This could be something like a lead magnet, where you give them something of value that they can download in exchange for their email address. Could be video content that you just put out there for people to consume, kind of like this. It could be an email newsletter that you send out that provides tips and helpful advice, basically something that doesn't require a large commitment from your audience, but it allows them to get a ton of value, see what you're about, and then maybe they'll do business with you in the future. Alright, and the next biggest mistake I see with marketing that leads to it leading to incredibly dismal results is failing to track the marketing results. Essentially, this is kind of the nerdy part, but it has to do with accountability and metrics. There's that old expression by John Wanamaker that says, half my advertising budget is wasted, I just don't know which half, and well, he was kind of right there, right? Back in the day, we didn't have these good tracking tools to figure out what was gonna work and what wasn't, and where leads and sales were coming from, and we didn't know if this one campaign was gonna work or if this campaign was the winner. Essentially, it was kind of just a guessing game. And we now have access to tons of data. In fact, way more than you could probably ever want, which means that you've really got to simplify things and just take a look at kind of the overall picture and structure of where your marketing dollars are going, what you're anticipating to get back in return, and then making sure that you've got those accountability metrics in place to track your results. This could be really basic things like return on investment, which essentially is how much did you spend and how much did you get back. But it could also be what I call diagnostic metrics, looking at things like cost per click. Basically, how much is it costing for someone to click on your ad and get over to your site? Could be click-through rate, basically looking at the percentage of people that see your ad and how many percentage of them click through to it. If you get more advanced, you could even start looking at things like cost per lead. How much is it costing you to acquire a lead? And ultimately, the number I'd love for you to get to is cost per customer acquisition. Basically, how much does it cost you to acquire a customer with different channels? Because when you figure this out, well, you become profitable very quickly because you're able to determine if the cost to acquire a customer is less than the lifetime customer value, well, you've got a positive ROI. All right, so the next thing you're gonna wanna do is check out these two videos right here. One's on Facebook advertising and the other is on Instagram marketing. Now, the beauty of Facebook and Instagram is that pretty much regardless of your target market, who you're trying to reach, one of these platforms is gonna be a good fit for your business. So make sure to check those out now, and I'll catch you next time on The Marketing Show.